Well, good morning, everyone. Happy Tuesday morning to you. Welcome back to Morning Musings. My name is Don K. Preston. I am the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma. Here we are, fully in, the full midst of February. It's just flying by so very, very rapidly. And so, wow. Anyway, I've got a lot to cover. I've just got a whole lot to cover. And thank you again so much for those of you who are subscribing to my channel. Remember, my goal is for this year, 2025, to reach 10,000 subscribers. I want to reach that. And like I said yesterday, that's up to you. Be sure to share my videos, share my channel. Let people know that I am proclaiming the faithfulness of God to keep His word, that I am addressing the skeptics who deny that Jesus kept His word, that I am proclaiming the deity of Jesus Christ. Share with everyone that what I am sharing with you here on my morning musings is the answer to the questions, to the challenges that have and that do plague Christianity because of the false concepts of eschatology that run rampant through the great majority of Christianity. Okay? Share that. All right, now then. So yesterday, I posed the question, where does the Bible posit the time of the fulfillment of Sukkot, the Feast of Harvest, the Feast of Ingathering, the feast of the, may I use that term, of the end of the age, because it was the turning of the seasons. Where does the Bible put that? Well, some people, liberal scholars who reject inspiration, they posit it at the time of Antiochus Epiphanes. Now, here's what's so ironic. I'm going to share this with you, okay? You know me, I like to go here, bring it all back together. There are some who tell us, well, Daniel chapter 12, verse 1, that's the time of Antiochus Epiphanes, the Great Tribulation. Oh, but verse 2, that's the end of time. So they insert a 2,500 year gap in the period at the end of verse 1, and yet they deny that they believe in a gap in Daniel chapter 12. Well, I'm sorry, that's just ridiculous. You can't say that verse 1 is the time of Antiochus Epiphanes, which actually occurred in the 2nd century BC, but Daniel wrote in the 6th century BC. But you cannot posit that great tribulation at the time of Antiochus and then jump forward 2,200 years plus and say that verse 2 is still waiting to be fulfilled, and then jump backward again to Antiochus Epiphanes. Who would ever gather that from reading the text? It just doesn't make any sense. That truly is argumentum ad desperatum. So, that's one of the suggestions. Now, what I'm doing here is sharing with you some of the attempts that are made to avoid what I'm going to share with you, maybe tomorrow, about the emphatic statements of Daniel chapter 12 about the time of the fulfillment of the resurrection, i.e., the fulfillment of the Feast of Sukkot. A couple of years ago now, I had an email exchange with a Church Christ minister. And that exchange took place as a result of a debate that my good friend Holger Neubauer had with another Church Christ minister, and Daniel chapter 12 became a focal point of discussion. And I'll be sharing that with you as we proceed. So this particular Church of Christ minister, very, very well known in those Church of Christ circles, he said, well, the problem you have, Preston, is you're not recognizing the distinction that is given in Daniel chapter 12. I'm going, okay, what distinctions might those be? I knew where he was going to go. But I ask, okay, explain that to us. Now I'm going to read verses 1 through 6. Okay? I want you to pay very careful attention to the grammar, to the flow of the narrative. Now, at that time, Michael, the great prince who stands guard over the sons of your people, will arise. I'm reading from the New American Standard. And there will be a time of distress such as never occurred since there was a nation until that time. And at that time, your people, everyone who is found written in the book will be rescued. And many of those who sleep in the dust of the ground will awake. These to everlasting life, but the others to disgrace and everlasting contempt. And those who have insight will shine brightly like the brightness of the expanse of heaven, and those who lead the many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever. But as for you, Daniel, conceal these words and seal up the book until the time of the end. Now, this particular New American Standard, 1987 version, has end of time. And boy, did they ever catch flack over that from the scholarly world. Because neither the Hebrew nor the Septuagint Greek supports the idea of end of time. That is a theological interpretation, not a linguistic translation. You need to know that. They got so much heat over this translation, i.e., end of time, that in the subsequent translations of the New American Standard, they changed it back to time of the end. Rightly so. But I did want to point out, this is one of an extremely small number of translations that render the text as end of time. But let me restate, that is a theological interpretation, not a linguistic translation. So, to go on, many will go back and forth, and knowledge will increase. Then I, Daniel, looked, and behold, two others were standing, one on this bank of the river, and the other on the bank of the river. And now watch this, verse 6. One said to the man dressed in linen, and it was above the waters of the river, how long will it be until the end of these wonders? What is this angel asking about? Well, he was asking about when all of the antecedent events that had been prophesied would be fulfilled. What are those antecedent events? Oh, great tribulation, resurrection, time of the end, righteous shining forth, knowledge being increased. Those are the antecedent events. But this Church of Christ minister said, see, Preston, what you're overlooking is the angel doesn't ask about all of the antecedent things. He says, what will be the end of these wonders? Yeah, he really did claim that. So he said, he's only asking about the time of the fulfillment of the wonders. And you're going, well, the very first time I read that, I'm going, and? How does that give you an escape? In other words, would the Great Tribulation not be a wonder? It would be the greatest tribulation that had ever been or ever would be since there was a nation. That's quite a wonder. I didn't say it was wonderful. I said it was quite a wonder. The resurrection. Would that not be a wonder? Well, let's see, John chapter 5, Jesus told his audience, the hour is coming and now is in which the dead shall hear the voice of the Son of Man and shall live. And those who live have passed from death unto life. And those who do this, he said, those who believe the voice of the Son of Man, they will live. They have passed. It's actually perfect tense, from death to life. Now, that was a present active reality. And then he said, don't marvel at this, for all the time is coming in which all that are in the graves. So what's he supposed to marvel at? What's he saying? What's the real marvel? It's all a marvel. I mean, the marvel of conversion, the marvel of coming to life in Christ is a marvel. And yet Jesus says, don't marvel at that, but marvel at this. The hour is coming in which all that are in the graves shall come forth, some to everlasting life, some to everlasting condemnation. That's Daniel chapter 12, verse 2. You catch the power of that? But this Church of Christ preacher, Ken Pope was his name, nice guy, by the way, was trying to say, well, wait a minute. Daniel wasn't asking when the resurrection would be. Then that means that the resurrection would not be a marvel, even though Jesus said it would be in John chapter 5, 28 and 29. You see the desperation at work here, folks? So what Mr. Pope, and subsequently I've found others who try to make that delineation, is that the angel was saying, now, some of these things are a marvel, some of them aren't. Just tell us when the marvels would be. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. That is one of the most facetious, may I use the word facile, untenable arguments that could possibly be made. You mean to tell me the resurrection would not be considered a marvel and a wonder? Really? Every human being who has ever lived, died, decomposed, gone into the ocean, been eaten by the fish, or simply decayed and gone back into the dust. You're telling me that if such an event as that ever occurred, it would not be a marvel? It would not be a wonder? It would not be the most stupendous event in the history of history? And yet we were told in this exchange, well, the angel was only asking about the marvels. Okay, that's fine. Let's run with that. The angel was asking, when shall these marvels take place? A resurrection of every human being who had ever died, buried, gone into the sea, would be the greatest marvel that human history had ever experienced. Therefore, the angel is asking about, tell us when this resurrection of those in the dust will take place. So the answer to that, the answer to the question, tell us how long will it be until the end of these wonders? Once again, would the resurrection of every human being who had ever died not be a wonder? Would it not be a marvel? Would it not be incredible beyond measure? You're telling me the angel wasn't asking about that as a marvel and as a wonder? Wouldn't that resurrection of every human being who had ever died, gone into the dirt or in the water, wouldn't that be greater than the great tribulation of Antiochus Epiphanes? Yeah. The tribulation under Antiochus Epiphanes, number one, it wasn't the Great Tribulation, but number two, was a localized event in the land of Judea. The resurrection of the dead, as posited by Mr. Pope and by every futurist, is an end of time event in which every human being who has ever lived is raised. Wouldn't that be an exponentially greater wonder than the Great Tribulation? You see the problem? This is argumentum ad desperatum. Okay, so now tomorrow we're going to look at heaven's answer about when shall these things be? What shall be the end when these wonders? And that's, once again, all you have to do is look at the antecedents, the antecedent events. And you know that it's completely untenable to say, well, yeah, he was asking about the Great Tribulation. He wasn't asking about the resurrection, even though it was the greatest one. It would be the greatest wonder in all the entirety of human history. No, it wasn't asking about that. He was asking about the more mundane events of the time of Antiochus Epiphanes, which couldn't even come close to being a wonder in comparison to the resurrection of the dead as proposed by Mr. Ken Pope and all futurists. So tomorrow, we're going to get back to the idea of the resurrection of Daniel chapter 12, verse 2, and when that resurrection, according to Daniel chapter 12, was to be fulfilled. I'll see you on the flip side.